Welcome back to Native Strength. I'm your host, Hyapatia. As I've said before, life happens very quickly. This is often why we have trouble sleeping at night. Our mind is still in overdrive, trying to make sure we got all of the important information from the day's events.
So, right now, with everyone slowing down due to the virus, it's a perfect time to check in with ourselves. Life moves in cycles, as we discussed in the videos on the Circles of Life teaching. We find ourselves on the wheel of life in one direction or another at any given time in our life. Sometimes this direction is based on our age, as with the circles of life. And sometimes it's part of nature, like our seasons. Right now, we find ourselves in a circle of social isolation, similar to the days of the plague or flu epidemic of the early 1900s. You may remember in the very beginning of the 3 episodes on bullies, I explained how human bullies all sit in the east on the wheel of life. In the East, there are many wheels these bullies can be put on, but the big wheel of bullies also includes environmental, economic, and situational bullies. There is no doubt that the disruption to our lives hits all of these directions on the wheel. Human bullies want to force their will on us with little or no regard for our own personal well-being. These environmental, economic, and situational bullies have no such motives. We can't reason with them. It can be impossible to distance ourselves from their influence. So what do? We look to nature for guidance. When we're in the ocean and we see a big wave coming, we brace ourselves to go with the flow. When animals know the winter is coming, they hibernate. So we follow suit. The wise person knows when to accept things they cannot change. Does this mean we spin our wheels, trying to not go stir crazy while waiting for things to get better? No. We use this time to our advantage. In the old days, people stayed inside more during the winter and worked on their crafts. They made clothes, drums, saddles, teepees, moccasins, and other things that they would need through the year. The warmer months were for gathering supplies. This is just one of the many ways we worked in harmony with nature. In times like these, we can go with the universal flow or try to work against it. Wise people don't try to fight Mother Nature. So let's use this time to refocus ourselves, to find our center, and go within. It can be easy to feel sorry for ourselves right now. Our hopes and dreams have been put on hold. Our entire life has been turned upside down. As I mentioned before, the only constant in the universe is change. Things will always change. And organisms that adapt best and fastest will survive, while others may not. One of the biggest stumbling blocks to change is fear. We fear failure and judgment. We've been raised to believe that we must behave in a certain way in order to fit in with society, to be worthy of love. Now, when I say this, some people may think I mean it's okay to steal from others or take advantage of the weak. No, this is not what I mean at all. I'm talking about how we deal with ourselves. When we're impatient and judgmental with ourselves, we tend to be that way with others. If we expect perfection from ourselves, we'll also expect it from our children, our significant other, and our co-workers. It's only when we accept our own shortcomings that we learn to do the same with others. Now, this all starts with our molding, sculpting, and armoring. The mold is the box, or a personality we have become in order to fit in and be worthy of love from others. The sculpting is the process of training us to be a person who would be accepted by the society in which we live. Armoring is when we restrict our own awareness and deny reality because it doesn't fit in with what our image makers have taught us. We listen to old internal recordings of our image makers' voices telling us what is valid. We're doing their job for them and accepting what we were taught, even though it may have changed. Our image makers had to raise us to be accepted by society. We had to learn the boundaries. As children, we discovered that if we misbehaved, we were not worthy of dessert, presents, and trips to fun places. We took this to mean that if we didn't behave in a certain way, we were unworthy of love. Indeed, when we acted up, we may have been sent to the corner or to our room, and love most certainly was withheld. This makes us feel unworthy of love in our original form. As children, we were unable to see the difference between behavior that was outright abusive to others and standing up for ourselves. The two may have looked very similar to our caregivers. They may have even misunderstood this from time to time. We may have been reprimanded for not giving in to a bully. This sculpts away our self-esteem and our ability to stand up for ourselves. We begin to question our own motives. We think our judgment may be wrong, and so we may feel we truly are unworthy of love in our original form. We become the person our image makers wanted us to be. There is good and bad to this. Now, we may fit in with society, but deep down, we wear a mask of self-pity because we feel in our core we're inadequate. We also don't really know our true self anymore because we've conformed in order to fit in. It's said that we hide in a box. The box is the image of ourselves we have been trained to be. And we wear a mask of self-pity. We feel sorry for ourselves because we can't let our true self show for fear of rejection. We have conformed in order to be accepted. And obviously, this creates a lot of pain. We armor ourselves to avoid feeling this pain. It becomes less painful to buy into the things we've been told than to examine them. We're afraid of what we might find if we open our eyes. Our imagination can dream up all kinds of horrors, and we may believe deep in our heart that we are unworthy of love. When we're stuck in the pattern of seeing things only as we learned from our family and childhood, we're dancing on the circle of foxes. Now, the fox is the protector and provider for the family. Each of our families had ways of doing things, patterns of behavior, and belief systems. For example, my ex-husband had a distant relative that was a doctor in a small town all of his adult life. Upon his death, they learned that he never actually went to medical school. The family story was that this man was so brilliant that he didn't need medical school, and the entire town loved him. The facts were that he had caused the death of many people due to his negligence, and he was obviously a scammer. This is just one example of the family stories we may have been told that were not necessarily the entire truth. On the circle of foxes, we have accepted what we have been told. We see the scammer as a fine doctor and never question his illegal tactics. After all, that's what we have been taught to think. The Circle of Foxes is the story of how we learned to adapt, to fit in, belong, and conform. This is how we survived within the status quo. When we have a pattern of accepting everything we were taught in our childhood as absolute fact, our ability to react to life is limited. If we only use the information we got in childhood, we've stopped learning. We won't live our lives to the fullest potential, to say the least. These patterns from our childhood form what is known as our mask of self-pity, or a Ashita, one who cannot see. This is our lower self. We live for the approval of others. Our very security depends on their recognition and acceptance. Our identity is defined by how others see us. And we often don't even realize we're doing this. Each of us has a unique circle of foxes based on our sitting point on the wheel of life, and this is determined by our birth. But there is a more generalized explanation of this circle, and this applies to everyone, regardless of our sitting place. We've adopted the needy, wounded child syndrome as our personal mask of self-pity. You may remember that the needy point is the first stop on the blue or animal road, an unhealthy shift on the assemblage point. The second point is called wounded. So you can see that the needy, wounded child syndrome is a path down the animal road. You may remember that the assemblage point is like a radio station. We tune into different vibrations and energies based on where it's located. When we allow it to go down the blue animal road, we can't hear the loving voice of our Creator and inner elders. It's only when we can shift the assemblage point down the red human road or down the yellow plant road toward the navel that we are in complete alignment with the Creator. Now, when we start down these paths, it's like tuning in a radio station that gives us good advice and unconditional love. So let's examine this circle of foxes. As most medicine wheels do, this starts in the South. Here, we're in the habit of needing approval, recognition, and acceptance from others. We justify this need in a variety of ways. We may insulate ourselves from diverse opinions by watching only one news channel or blocking people on social media who don't agree with our opinions. By only listening to those we agree with, we fool ourselves into a false sense of righteousness. Remember, if we live in a cult community, we never see the rest of the world and will believe anything that we're told. We don't have any checks or balances. When we cut ourselves off from the rest of the world electronically by blocking everyone with a different opinion, it's the same situation. We're living in a cult. We find our security in the material world, and so we tend to hoard things. This gives us a false sense of being in control. Because we aren't really thinking things through, we may hoard things that we really don't need, like toilet paper. We're out of balance, and we're having a hard time finding harmony. In a way, we're operating in a state of shock. We're like a young child lost in the woods, cut off from the wise advice of our inner elders. In the Southwest, on the Circle of Foxes, we hold on to our pain and closed symbols. Now, what I mean by this is that we're not willing to learn from our past mistakes or the mistakes of others. We refuse to see that they could have been mistakes at all. Instead, we blame others for anything that didn't go as planned. They're responsible for our decisions, our situation, our behavior, everything. We take no responsibility at all. Next, we move to the West. Now, you probably remember that the West stands for the physical world, so it may come as no surprise here that we're willing to do anything for monetary success, fame, and recognition. We believe we're free, but this is a false sense of freedom because we're trapped by our own false beliefs. You might ask, what beliefs are those? Well, just as we talked about in the South and the Southwest, we believe we must have the approval of others to be okay, to survive. We refuse to learn from our mistakes and the mistakes of others. We believe that monetary success and recognition are the keys to self-esteem. They are not. Learning to talk to your inner elders and inner children are the keys. Success is not measured by things or money. It's measured by happiness. Money can't buy happiness. Some things can make you happy. Money can buy a safe environment, but it can't make people respect you. We can't buy integrity, honesty, humility, health, true knowledge and not just memorization of facts, or hope. These things are priceless. When we move to the Northwest, we doggedly hold on to our own self-made rules to justify our sense of reality. We have no regard for others or sacred law. The world revolves around us. It has become impossible to put ourselves in another's shoes or to have empathy. We revert to blaming victims to separate ourselves from the possibility that such a thing could ever happen to us. If we're confronted with our unfair behavior, we instinctively resort to a barrage of, "What about so-and-so?" who may have done a similar thing. The North is the holder of knowledge and wisdom. On the circle of foxes, we firmly believe we have a right to do what we are doing, regardless of the karmic consequences. A good example of this is the televangelist that begs for seed money from people dying and destitute. They seem to believe that God is on their side, but obviously, the Creator doesn't want a patient foregoing treatment in order to give money to the church. In the Northeast, we believe we must do things the hard way in order to prove ourselves. We think this is how we win the respect of others. This is seen in the person that won't take suggestions or instructions from others and feels he must ignore the paved road and go through the thorn bushes instead. If this person is responsible for others in any way, they will suffer as a result of his ego. The East is the holder of enlightenment. So here on the Circle of Foxes, we believe we are actualizing our sacred dream, when in fact we're only furthering our personal dream. We believe God has told us to act in this way. This is a very dangerous scenario. When people think they have the Creator on their side, it can be a slippery slope. If they're benevolent and giving, this can be good, but this is the Circle of Foxes. So benevolent and giving are not in the equation. When we feel we're on our sacred path, we have energy to do what may seem impossible. We're focused. It's almost as if nothing can stop us. On the other hand, if we've fooled ourselves into believing this is true to further our own greedy self-interest, it could lead to disaster. This is how dictators are made. They are so convinced of their chosen authority that they will often stop at nothing to remain in power. Millions upon millions of people have died as a result of one person on the Circle of Foxes being put in a position of power. Our attitude and approach on this wheel, the southeast, is reactionary. We don't act, we react. Everything we do is prompted by the behavior of others. If we don't like them, we do the opposite of what they suggest. If we consider them a friend, we follow every word. This is because we have no true self-esteem. We want to feel good about ourselves, so we think if we do as those we like ask, this will bring us their respect. The respect of others is a false sense of self-esteem. People who believe this is real can also sometimes feel powerful when others are frightened by them. Both of these sources need to be renewed frequently, so those who rely on them often incite fear or surround themselves only with those who agree with them. But the truth is, we are only a puppet, and the wise will see this. They will use us and manipulate us to get their way. Since we're blinded on the circle of foxes, we won't be able to see this at all. We'll think we're being respected and treated as an equal. The only way off of this wheel is to ignore others, go inside, and communicate with your inner personas to find your true self. Now, this is a long, involved process, and I just touched on it briefly in the Mirrors of Self-Reflection episodes. Now is the perfect time for this, since we're naturally isolated due to situations beyond our control. But this can be difficult. We often tend to fall back on the patterns that were created when we were children. We're social beings, and it's natural to compare ourselves to others, to learn from them, and to make sure we aren't off course. In order to do this, many will resort to social media. And this has its merits, but it's highly addictive. It's very easy to find you've spent hours online and done nothing productive. In the end, we usually don't even feel better about ourselves. In fact, we often feel worse. One of the first clues that we're looking for the approval of others to help our low self-esteem may be spending too much time on social media and getting emotional over the reactions of others. We may be offended by anyone who doesn't agree. So we could be stuck in a pattern of seeking approval from others, but these people don't know anything about us, and we may feel judged by one or two posts. This is not helping our self-esteem. How do we break out of this habit, this circle of foxes? How do we stop wearing the mask of self-pity and feeling like we need to conform to be accepted and worthy of love? In the Mirrors of Self-Reflection episode, I told you about the Mayan teaching, about the 5 movements of breaking the mold that we've been sculpted into. You may remember that the first step is not needing love and approval from others. We've already discussed that a bit. The second step is to embrace change. We certainly are going through a lot of changes in the world right now. The best way to embrace these changes is to go within, adapt as best we can, and go with the natural flow. Fighting is not only futile, but potentially lethal. The third step is to stop the world. And right now is a good time to embrace this natural timing, as our world has stopped in many ways. So now is the perfect time to go within and love yourself for who you really are. The universe has given us a situation that almost forces us to do this. As I've said many times, this all starts with the inner personas. So take some time to create a quiet, soothing environment for yourself. I like to use sage to smudge, dim the lights, and light some candles. This is a signal to my body that it's now time to slow down a bit. I slow my breath. Imagine the energy coming from my root, filling me up and flowing down around me. Once I've got this visualization down, I begin the inner dialogue. Now remember, we must silence the inner adults who keep reminding us of things that we should do in our daily life. We're moving beyond day-to-day activities. Ask yourself what it is you really want to do. Not what you should do, not what you have been told by others that you should want to do, or even what would be wise to do, but what you really want to do. This is an open-ended question. There's no time limit. The question is not, what do you want to do right now, or what do you want to do for the next day, or even while we're isolated? No. The question is, what do you want to do? Don't limit your responses by what is practical or even possible. Now isn't the time for that. Now is the time to just listen to your inner children as they dream and fantasize. I've always found that this is impossible to do without having something on which to write down the answers. Otherwise, I forget them. I get a flood of things I would like to do someday, and I write them all down. There are things I want to learn and areas I want to explore. As I look at my list later, some are more likely to get done than others, and some are just passing desires. But the ones I've been holding on to for years will rise to the surface. Now is a good time to pursue these.
Join me next time as we take a look at the light choices on the wheel of life, the dance of the coyotes. Until then, stay safe and stay strong.
Yo.